So, Gurkan, thanks very much, first of all, for the opportunity to speak about the Hunger for Justice campaign on your channel. We're delighted to be on it. So, the campaign itself, it started off back on April 15th of last year, and it began as a small action by North Tipperary activists here in Ireland, a small group that we have who wanted to raise awareness in Ireland about the genocide in Gaza and the plight of the Palestinian people. So we decided on a campaign where a different member from our group would undertake a 24-hour fast, and we do it on consecutive days. On the fast day, the volunteer would refrain from food and drink except for water, and they'd also dedicate their fast to an individual or to a family who'd been killed in the genocide. In preparation, the volunteer prepared a video message or a written tribute, which we then share on our social media. This has proven to be a really striking aspect of the Hunger for Justice campaign. Many volunteers came back to us with, positive experiences about it, even though they found it tough to do, and they found it, it was a difficult process thinking of the volunteer that they were dedicated to. But nonetheless, they were grateful for it, and they felt a deeper connection with Palestine because of it. So while raising awareness with the public was our primary aim, we also felt that it could be used to raise funds for charity, particularly UNRWA, so that this could kind of be an add-on to the campaign. And as the campaign grew, we did get support from many well-known supporters in Ireland, and that spurred it on. We also received tremendous support from the Kerry Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, and they managed the campaign for a month on our behalf. And so it proved to be very successful within Palestinian activist circles in Ireland, but it didn't gain the national or the international traction that we had hoped that it would. That was until a volunteer from the Hunger for Justice during last summer, Jackie McMullen. He was a former IRA hunger striker in the Maze in 1981. He got in contact, with us again, and he proposed an idea that his fellow hunger striker, Leo Green, had. It involved running a mass fast event and getting as many people as possible to join the fast on a single day. So we started to collaborate every Monday night on our Zoom meetings, and we started to get great support from across the country and even abroad from outside Ireland. And we had some very well-known names on the campaign supporting us, including the President of Ireland's wife, Sabina Higgins. So this coordination, combined with a huge effort put in by the hunger strikers, really propelled the mass fast. And in the end, it was held on December 12th, and we had 1,600 volunteers on it, including a good proportion from your own group, the Anti-Imperialist Front, which we were delighted to have involved. And we had 29 vigils across Ireland and Britain, and we raised over €100,000 in those couple of weeks. So we were delighted with the impact that the campaign had. And from then on, we continued our daily rolling campaign, and we're delighted to say it's going from strength to strength, and we've just passed our 300th consecutive day on it, and we hope that we can continue it for as long as we're able. Well, it's very simple, Gurkan. Both have had to suffer at the hands of colonialism. Fortunately, in Ireland, we're much further down the path towards freedom from empire. But being under the heel of Britain for 800 years has left an imprint on the Irish psyche. So we recognise oppression when we see it, even when it's from 4,000 kilometres away. We empathise with the Palestinians. They're violently evicted from their homes by a superior armed aggressor. That certainly rings true with the Irish. That happened to us. We empathise with the Palestinians being treated as second-class citizens in their own land. That happened to us. We empathise with Palestinians starved to death while humanitarian aid was held back from them. That happened to us. And we recognise that when the terrorist label is applied to a people who can suffer no more and take up their legal right to fight back against its occupier. We recognise that because it happened to us. So, Gherkin, as part of this, I have to address the fact that the Irish government has come in for praise in their pro-Palestinian stance internationally. It's simply not justified, I'm afraid. The governments led by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael here in Ireland had uttered some pre-election platitudes about Palestine late last year, but have taken absolutely no action whatsoever to sanction Israel or to improve Palestinian lives. A real example of this happened with the Occupied Territories Bill. This bill was introduced by Senator Francis Black 7 years ago and has not been enacted, despite it having passed through all legislative stages. The bill is so basically just that I'm amazed that we had to have legislation for it at all. It says that goods and services from illegally occupied territories, in this case the West Bank settlements, and from stolen lands, to be banned for import to Ireland. Yet the government stalls on this, and they just refuse to implement the bill, and they're now coming up with some watered down version of it, which won't have the effect that was intended and doesn't make the statement that was originally intended. So once again, a real sign of the people wanting one thing and those in power going in the opposite direction. And I think your audience it'll resonate with them about that. This, coupled with the allowance of US military warplanes to land at Shannon Airport here in Ireland, it's in violation of our neutrality, and the sale also of Israeli war bonds by our central bank, as well as the actual increase in trade with Israel since the genocide has begun. That would disgust most Irish people, and it shows that our government is nothing more than a stooge of empire. It's beholden to the EU at one level and the US at another level. And just wanted to emphasise that, that the Irish people are firmly behind the Palestinian cause. It's a shame that our leaders don't follow suit. Well, their role is central. I mean, contrasting it with the Irish empathy for the colonised, if you look at the nations that have been most rabid in their support of apartheid Israel within Europe, it's been the colonisers who are the previous colonisers, traditional colonisers who've been to the forefront. The power elites in the UK, Germany, in France have led the way in supporting Israel and quashing pro-Palestinian protests in their own countries. Part of the reason for this, I believe, is that they have no insight into being oppressed. With very few exceptions in time, they've always been the superpower, the domineering empire. So they have inherited a psyche which naturally coalesces with the Zionist project. The fact that mealy-mouthed words and lack of action by our government here in Ireland is seen as some crusading pro-Palestinian bastion, it only serves to highlight the absolute depravity of these larger nations' leaders. With regard to the United States, look, they're the crucial player in all of this, obviously, and they are an empire across the globe. They don't put that moniker on it, but that's what they are. And the sad reality is they could have this crisis solved in the morning, and they have all the leverage on Israel. And if you don't believe that, just go back to Trump. Before he was even in office, he was able to get a ceasefire in place immediately. And that was it. Just went in with uncompromisingly and got that. And that's not to praise Trump. Obviously, he's no friend of Palestine, but it just shows the influence that they have over the Israeli government and the Zionists. So it's a pity that they don't use it, because unlike the European nations, the US does have a tradition of being being oppressed and its people having to liberate themselves. Unfortunately, that's 250 years ago now, and since then, it has moved through the gears into being a superpower and an empire. So where do you go with it from there? I mean, that's where the power resides. I believe myself that education is the key to reversing that, because trying to break into those echelons of power is so difficult and so corrupting in itself that I don't know if it can be done. But from grassroots actions, it definitely can affect change. That was shown in Dearborn, Michigan last year, where Joe Biden was, kind of forced to backtrack on his pro-Israeli stance to a small degree because of the 100,000 people who voted uncommitted against him. So if you can mobilize on that level, and the fact of the matter is, if people know the actual history of what's gone on in Palestine over the last 150 years, well, then there'd be absolutely no problem whatsoever in people's minds as to what the situation is in reality. That what you have is a settler colony invaded a country, pushed out the indigenous population, displacing them and killing tens of thousands of them in the process, displacing 750,000 of them and not allowing them back. That is essentially the whole history of it in a nutshell. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but if people knew that basic level of information on what went on, which they don't, it's not transmitted to them through our media is captured, our governments are captured, corporations in the same way are captured as far as that goes, behind the globalist agenda, and they all just row in and follow a history that is just simply not accurate. And again, if people only knew that in broad swathes across the world, the pressure would be insurmountable because of the level of injustice that's involved. So the Hunger for Justice campaign did begin as a reaction to the genocide in Gaza, but obviously, as the title of the campaign suggests, justice is what we're after, and the ending of the bombing and the maiming and the chaos in Palestine, that's not just enough on its own. There has to be justice for all the people who live in that land. So we obviously want to build on that as well. The campaign isn't going to end now just because there was a ceasefire last week. So what we want to do is we'd like to build networks with sort of similarly thinking people, and to grow those so that we have a stronger network. So when a message goes out, more people hear it, more people see it. So we would, anything that can be used to amplify the message of justice for all, we will be behind that. And I do really believe in the grassroots nature, the organic nature of movements, that they have a genuine element to them that resonates with the ordinary person. And there's so many good organisations out there doing great work, like yourselves, Gherkin, and we're delighted that you were able to be part of our mass fast back in December. It was great to get to meet you since as well. And we'd only be looking for ways that we can work together on areas that we have common interest in. I know a lot of, and I hate to use the label, left-leaning organisations. They tend to kind of stay in their own lane, and if they're not fully aligned with another one, that they just keep doing their own small little thing. And we're missing out so much by doing that, because if you can work with other groups on specific issues that you want to move forward, then that's really something you should take advantage of and build networks of organisations. Then you start to have power, you start to have a voice that can be heard, that can break through. And well, I'd just like to thank you and the Anti-Imperialist Front for the work that you're doing. It's great that you're out there and that you're doing this, and that you've got such a great network across the world, to be honest, especially in Europe. And we're just delighted that you saw our campaign and were willing to get involved, and so many of your members helped with it. And we look forward to collaborating with you in future in events that yourselves or that we might be running in the future. So thanks very much, Kirk, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat about these issues with you, and look forward to collaborating with you again in the future. Take care. Gora Malkut.